Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most famously pessimistic philosophers in Western thought, presents a vision of human existence that is as stark as it is profound. Unlike many philosophical traditions that celebrate human progress, growth, or the potential for fulfillment, Schopenhauer confronts us with an uncomfortable truth: lasting happiness is impossible for human beings. Life, he argues, is fundamentally suffering, and attempts to achieve permanent contentment are doomed from the start. At the center of Schopenhauer's philosophy is the concept of the will to live. This is not a conscious choice or rational decision. It is a blind, insatiable, and irrational force that drives all living beings, compelling them to strive, desire, and struggle endlessly. The will to live is the underlying engine of existence, operating invisibly yet decisively in humans, animals, and, in a more abstract sense, all of nature. It is not directed toward a specific goal, nor is it guided by reason. Instead, it manifests as a continuous, ceaseless drive, an urge to exist, reproduce, and perpetuate life, regardless of suffering, obstacles, or consequence. The core problem Schopenhauer identifies is deceptively simple yet profoundly unsettling. Human beings are trapped in a cycle of desire that can never be fully satisfied. Every time one desire is fulfilled, another immediately takes its place. Hunger is satiated, only for thirst to arise. Ambition is achieved, only for a new goal to emerge. Pleasure is experienced, only to be replaced by boredom. In this way, life becomes a pendulum swinging ceaselessly between two forms of suffering: the pain of unfulfilled desire and the emptiness of boredom. In Schopenhauer's view, happiness is never a permanent, positive state. It is merely the temporary cessation of suffering. Moments of pleasure are fleeting pauses in an ongoing struggle, brief respites before the cycle begins anew. Even if one attains wealth, success, recognition, or status, the will to live ensures that satisfaction is temporary and incomplete. Our nature guarantees that contentment is always partial, elusive, and transient. This insight leads Schopenhauer to a radical claim: true, lasting happiness is impossible. Life is not a journey toward joy or fulfillment, but a continuous oscillation between striving and emptiness. The pursuit of happiness is, in his words, fundamentally futile, because desire itself is endless, and the satisfaction of one desire inevitably produces another. To illustrate his point, Schopenhauer famously compares life to a pendulum that swings backward and forward between pain and boredom. On one side is the suffering generated by unfulfilled desires: hunger, fear, ambition, envy, grief, and countless other forms of striving. On the other side is boredom, the dissatisfaction that arises when all immediate desires are met and the mind is left with emptiness. Even boredom, which might appear neutral or harmless, is a form of suffering. It represents the absence of purpose, stimulation, or engagement, a kind of psychological pain that emerges when the will has nothing to act upon. In this sense, human life is never free from suffering. The pendulum swings incessantly, ensuring that any sense of contentment is always temporary. Pleasure, in Schopenhauer's analysis, is largely negative rather than positive. It is not an achievement in itself, but merely the removal of suffering. Pain is a positive, tangible reality, an unavoidable component of life, while happiness is the temporary absence of pain, a brief gap in the ongoing cycle of desire. This perspective underlines the bleakness of Schopenhauer's assessment. Human life is far more defined by suffering than by joy. Death plays a central role in Schopenhauer's understanding of suffering. Life, he argues, is essentially a long postponement of death. From the moment we are born, we struggle to survive, driven by the will to live, only to eventually succumb to mortality. Awareness of death adds a constant, subtle unease to our existence. No matter the pleasures, accomplishments, or experiences we encounter, they are overshadowed by the knowledge that life is finite and impermanent. This awareness renders human striving both urgent and futile. Every goal achieved, every ambition realized is temporary. Time erodes satisfaction, and death ensures that fulfillment is never permanent. The closer we approach the end of life, the more apparent it becomes that happiness is fleeting, illusory, and ultimately unattainable. The will to live propels us forward relentlessly, yet the inevitability of death undermines all our efforts, reminding us of the temporary and fragile nature of worldly achievements. Although Schopenhauer's worldview is starkly pessimistic, he does not leave humanity entirely without hope. While lasting happiness may be impossible, he proposes ways to temporarily escape the relentless cycle of desire and suffering. One of the most profound and accessible methods is aesthetic contemplation. Immersion in art, music, literature, or natural beauty allows individuals to step momentarily outside the grip of the will. While engaged with a symphony, painting, sculpture, or a breathtaking landscape, a person forgets personal worries, ambitions, and cravings. In these moments, the will is temporarily silenced and suffering is alleviated. These experiences provide fleeting glimpses of peace, reminding us that while happiness may be unattainable, temporary relief is possible through engagement with beauty. Interestingly, Schopenhauer sees music as the most direct route to this kind of transcendence. Unlike other arts, which represent or imitate aspects of the world, music expresses the will itself. Listening to a symphony or a complex composition allows the listener to experience the essence of life's striving without being personally enmeshed in it. For a few moments, the endless cycle of desire is paused, and the mind rests in contemplation. Schopenhauer also emphasizes the moral dimension of human existence as a source of temporary relief. By recognizing that all beings are driven by the same will to live, individuals can cultivate empathy and compassion. Compassion allows one to connect with the suffering of others, diminishing self-centered cravings and ego-driven desires. Engaging in acts of kindness, alleviating the suffering of others, and fostering genuine concern for other beings reduces personal suffering. While this does not create lasting happiness, it mitigates the intensity of desire and provides meaningful, albeit temporary, reprieve from life's dissatisfaction. Ethics, in this sense, become a practical strategy for coping with existence, offering purpose and relief amidst suffering. The most extreme escape Schopenhauer proposes is asceticism, the deliberate denial of the will to live. Influenced by Eastern philosophies, including Buddhism and Hinduism, asceticism involves minimizing desires, renouncing pleasures, and detaching from worldly ambitions. Through discipline and self-restraint, the individual seeks to quiet the will, reducing suffering and approaching a state of peace. Ascetic practices may include fasting, celibacy, withdrawal from material pursuits, meditation, or contemplation of the transient nature of life. The goal is not happiness in the conventional sense, but freedom from the endless cycle of desire and suffering. By stepping outside the demands of the will, the ascetic experiences a rare tranquility, a state untainted by the ceaseless striving that dominates ordinary existence. Central to Schopenhauer's philosophy is the notion that happiness is ultimately an illusion. Human existence is structured around unending desire, temporary satisfaction, and inevitable disappointment. No matter how much we achieve, acquire, or experience, the will ensures that fulfillment is fleeting. Life is, in his words, a bad deal, with suffering outweighing pleasure, and death serving as the ultimate reminder of impermanence. This perspective challenges much of Western philosophy. While thinkers like Aristotle, Epicurus, and even Kant sought paths to happiness through virtue, moderation, or fulfillment of duty, Schopenhauer views the pursuit itself as inherently futile. Our very nature guarantees that satisfaction is incomplete, and the pendulum of pain and boredom never ceases. Although Schopenhauer's outlook is deeply pessimistic, it offers a path toward wisdom, mindfulness, and inner calm. By acknowledging the inevitability of suffering, we can shift our focus from chasing fleeting happiness to reducing desire and cultivating peace. 3 primary methods allow temporary relief from suffering. 1. Aesthetic contemplation. Immersion in art, music, and nature quiets the will and offers moments free from personal desire. 2. Ethical compassion, acts of kindness and empathy reduce ego-driven craving and create a sense of purpose. 3. Ascetic renunciation. Detachment from worldly desires and ambitions provides the most radical escape from the cycle of striving. Through these approaches, Schopenhauer teaches that happiness is not a goal to be pursued, but a byproduct of reduced suffering. The wise response to life is not to chase pleasure, but to accept suffering, cultivate mindfulness, and find stillness amid the storm of existence. Schopenhauer's philosophy is uncompromising and sobering. It strips life of comforting illusions and forces us to confront the reality that human existence is dominated by suffering. Yet within this bleakness lies a subtle, transformative insight. Although lasting joy is unattainable, moments of relief, peace, and clarity are possible. By understanding the nature of the will and the inevitability of desire, we gain tools to navigate life more consciously. Instead of frantically pursuing pleasure, we can cultivate quietude, compassion, and appreciation for the fleeting beauty of existence. Schopenhauer does not merely despair. He offers a framework for mindful engagement with life, a life in which suffering is acknowledged but not glorified, and where brief moments of peace are cherished as rare and precious gifts. Schopenhauer's ideas extend beyond philosophy into psychology, literature, and even modern self-help thought. His analysis of human desire anticipates modern theories about hedonic adaptation, the psychological tendency for people to return to a baseline level of satisfaction, regardless of achievements or material gains. In this sense, his work is remarkably prescient. Even today, we see that success, wealth, or fame rarely bring lasting fulfillment. Furthermore, Schopenhauer's focus on aesthetic experience and compassion resonates with contemporary approaches to mental health. Mindfulness practices, engagement with the arts, and empathy-driven actions mirror his suggestions for temporary relief from suffering. In other words, while he may seem pessimistic, Schopenhauer offers practical strategies for living a more reflective and less desire-driven life. Arthur Schopenhauer presents a vision of life that challenges conventional notions of happiness and fulfillment. Human beings are driven by an irrational, insatiable will to live, generating endless desires and inevitable suffering. Life swings like a pendulum between the pain of striving and the emptiness of boredom, leaving stable, lasting happiness forever out of reach. Death looms as a permanent reminder of life's impermanence, further highlighting the futility of desire. Yet even within this stark reality, Schopenhauer identifies ways to reduce suffering: aesthetic contemplation, ethical compassion, and ascetic renunciation. These methods do not produce lasting happiness, but they offer temporary relief, moments of peace, and the possibility of a life less dominated by desire. The lesson of Schopenhauer's philosophy is both sobering and liberating. Enduring happiness is unattainable, but relief from suffering is possible. The wise path is not to chase pleasure, but to quiet desire, accept the inevitability of pain, and cultivate moments of inner calm. In this understanding, we find not conventional joy, but a profound, mindful engagement with the reality of human existence. Schopenhauer's lasting insight is simple yet powerful. Life is built on suffering, desire is endless, and happiness is fleeting. But by recognizing the nature of our condition and learning to step outside the ceaseless cycle of striving, we can discover a deeper form of peace, stillness amid the storm of existence.